You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 10, Survival Horror, with Avalanche Reviews, Jared.
Last we left, when I was still doing Pixel Tunes Radio, we had Jared on to talk about Silent Hill.
Oh,
yeah. And that was a really fun episode. Yeah. So we're really happy that Jared has stopped by to the old XVGM Radio station and is ready to listen to and play some really awesome tracks that we've picked. So Jared, say hello.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, guys. This is pretty sweet. I'm kind of a little upset that you think I'm so one trick that it's only survival horror stuff you can invite me on for. But
that's your bread and butter.
It really is. That's true. You have me figured out.
For the record, Jared is currently, well, Jared will tell you a little bit about it. He has a YouTube channel, which he'll tell you about, and he's running through a certain series of games that I think are very applicable to this conversation, this discussion that we're going to have today. So,
Absolutely.
I don't know, Jared, I'll let you fill in the blanks. What do you got?
Some would say
what are you putting
the
out these
series
days?
that is applicable to this episode. I'm running through right now a Resident Evil retrospective that kind of, at first I wanted to roll through like the first, I don't know, 4 Resident Evil games, and it got such a good reaction. So many people were saying, hey, do Outbreak, hey, you know, do Resident Evil 6, do this, do that. So I ended up covering the entirety of the Resident Evil series, every game ever released, minus the 3D Mercenaries on the 3DS, and all of the myriad of Resident Evil 4 Java games released on old cell phones back in the day. But yeah, I got stuck in, so now I have played almost every single Resident Evil game ever released.
And you're still here.
Yeah.
You're still alive. You have not turned into the living dead.
I did live to tell the tale. This is true.
Yeah, Jared does really awesome videos where he does super in-depth looks and his own perspective on games. So check out his channel. We'll have links in the description below, but I'm pretty sure if you just type in Avalanche Reviews or Avalanche Jared, you'll find him.
Yeah.
Before I had any kind of a following, you know, even back when I had like 5,000 subscribers, when you would type Avalanche Reviews, you would just get a bunch of videos about like the SUV, the Avalanche. I think it's a Toyota Avalanche, I think, for the longest time.
Okay.
But now I've gotten the honor of when you type in Avalanche Reviews, you only get me now.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
That's cool.
I made it.
I thought you were going to say like you get something about the terrorist group from Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
You know what? I would have accepted that a little easier.
Yeah. So the track that Jared brought us in on is from Silent Hill 3, and it's on the PS2 and the PC. It came out in 2003, and the track is called You're Not Here, and it's by Akira Yamaoka with vocals from Mary Elizabeth McGlynn. Tell me a little bit about this track and why because we basically, when we have guests on, we're like, yo, you pick the track for the intro. So we wanted to do that this time around, and Jared is actually our first guest that's not a composer. So you have the astute honor of being the first guest.
Nice.
So what made you choose this track over something else?
Here's the thing about Akira Yamaoka is he has 2 speeds. It is either very atmospheric and ambient. It's not, his guitar sound isn't very like resonant. It's more almost like off key. You know what I mean? It's almost like he's one note away from playing the note that would have sounded correct in that spot. But it also has a very kind of like a rock and roll type of feel, but it's really sad at the same time. I think a lot of like his note structure and stuff just feels a little sad. And Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is always a killer singer. She does great voiceover work, and something about this song when I first played Silent Hill 3, starting it up, it didn't fit with the, you know, because I'd played other Silent Hill games and I knew the odd atmosphere that they were known for, and then this song has energy. You know what I mean? It's rocking, and she's talking about like a love story, which Silent Hill is very introspective, but it's not so on the nose that it'll just flat out say I love you. It'll give you like 10 text files to read and then like a secret hidden thing in the background to figure that stuff out. So
right.
This one hit me really hard because at first I didn't like it because it clashed so hard with the feeling of Silent Hill, and after about 2 times of booting the game up, it grew on me so hard that I can't think of Silent Hill without this song anymore, you know?
So Silent Hill 3, so it takes place 17 years after Silent Hill. Essentially you're playing as this character, this girl Heather, who is Harry Mason, who was in the first game. You're playing as his teenage daughter, basically, in this game. I personally have not played this one, but I know that Heather's in this one because she was featured very prominently in the cover, in all the promo art. Like, they really tried to put a face to the game series in this aspect.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they tried to make it a little more relatable, a little less creepy. I mean, when you look at the Silent Hill 2 cover art, it's just like green noise, basically, with like a faint touch of a person's face. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And the first game, I'm trying to...
Yeah, I think
there's
Sybil,
a cop on the front cover.
You know what? That's a very good question. I think on the cover... Yeah. Sybil is on the front cover of the first game. You're right.
When they do include female protagonists or female characters that are like really deep in the story, they try to make them prominent. I think Konami has done a great job with that. I dig this track. It reminded me of something that would come from like the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like that, like those the Beatles era.
I didn't get quite that feel, although the time period might be about right. I got a very much like a goth feel out of it, like not quite Susie and the Banshees, not quite The Cure, but almost in that same realm. And what you were mentioning, Jared, about like the note the notes that seem almost kind of off. Mm. I'm not sure how much Akira was into any of that stuff, but it's very similar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of that kind of music.
Yes, yeah, and you know you're definitely right about that. I never thought about it, but when you mention it, it does have a very 80s goth rock type of feel to it, for sure. Yeah, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes.
And it's funny because, I mean, this came out in 2003, and I was just thinking, like, this sounds like something I would have been listening to in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I looked and I was like, oh, well, it wasn't out then, but
well, that makes sense,
it has the right feel. Mm.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that kind of does make sense, because the 90s were echoing the 70s and some of the flower power, like 70s, like prog rock type.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of era of hard rock was really vibrant in the early to mid 90s.
For sure.
Not so much in the later portion, but like Oasis was huge around that time too.
That is true.
And they were like the second coming of the Beatles. If you will.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do a quick just update regarding a previous episode. We wanted to make a slight correction regarding episode 7. What is that correction?
So apparently we have learned that Junko Tamiya is actually the composer on the arcade version of Strider. Also, apparently, the Commodore 64 version of Ghostbusters is the original game, which was released in 1984. It was then ported to the 2600 in 1985 and the NES in 1988. So we just want to say thank you to Utopia Nemo.
Yep, also known as Nate. Yeah, appreciate the feedback. That's nice because, you know, we do tons of research for these shows, and we can't always get everything right. Every little detail. Yeah. So that's really appreciated. But yeah, I learned something today, so pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and start off. We're going to go round robin. So we're going to start with Jared's track, and then we're going to go to Justin's track, and then my track. And we each pick 3 tracks, and then we have a final track at the end that Justin and I picked. So Jared, what do you got for us?
We are going to be listening to a song from Resident Evil 2 with one of my favorites. And when you say a song from Resident Evil 2, this is the song you're talking about, like 95% of the time. It's the front hall theme when you first enter the RPD.
That's right. And that's by Masami Ueda. That was the PlayStation 1 release that came out initially in 1998. The game was later ported to the Dreamcast, N64, GameCube, and everywhere else. So let's take a listen.
So that was the front hall theme from Resident Evil 2, released on the PS1 in 1998, made by Masami Ueda, Shisaku Uchiyama, and Shun Nishigaki.
Yeah, so Resident Evil 2, when I do think of that game, this is definitely the track that I think of.
As soon as you said, like, this is the track, I was like, oh, I wonder if it's... Oh, and then it was.
Yep.
So good. So eerie.
Yeah. So, Jared, what was the first Resident Evil game that you ever played? Was it this one, or was it the first, or which one was it?
I was lucky enough to start from the very beginning. I started with the original release of Resident Evil 1, And I kind of had a weird history with it because I got the PS1 about 2 years after it launched. I grew up really poor, so I had a Sega Genesis, and my cousins had a Super Nintendo, and I would go to their house, and they had, I couldn't tell you if it was a Game Pro, some game magazine, and I would see clips of Resident Evil, and I would wonder because each clip was at a different angle, and the way my mind understood video games was like side scroller, top down, boom, you're finished, that's it. So I would see these different angles, and I would just wonder, how would a human being even control a game that like operated in 3D space like this? I couldn't understand it. So I was hooked on the idea of the game even before I understood what the gameplay was like. So when I first played Resident Evil, I was in the areas I saw in the screen caps from the magazine. It just killed me. But that disc that I rented came with the demo for Resident Evil 2, and it ends quite literally inside the RPD. So one of the last things you remember when you play that demo is that first scene walking into the RPD. So it just sticks with me. It's so good.
What about you, Justin? When was the first Resident Evil experience?
Fairly similar, actually. I started with Resident Evil 1 on the PlayStation, and I don't think I've ever completely played through any of the Resident Evil games that I can think of. I have watched friends play through them, and that's, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's just as good. Not that I have anything against the game, like, oh, I'd never play it. I'm not one for scary movies. Scary video games aren't worse. I actually enjoy them because it tends to be more of an interactive experience.
Right.
Just like watching people get murdered or whatever. But yeah, no, I played, I think, about halfway through one, and then I had a friend who was just really into it, and I watched him play the rest, and we sort of like played it together, I guess. Resident Evil 2, I think I played for the first maybe hour or so, and then similar situation, same friend actually. So, but they were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so different than anything else that I'd been playing, and I completely agree with what Jared said. Having come from the NES and the SNES, where everything was either top-down, side-scroller, or the three-quarter view, the different camera angles were so like different. I mean, even on the PlayStation 1, you had a lot of the platformers. The original controller didn't have the analog sticks, so you didn't have camera control.
Right. Well, I mean, even so, with the tank controls for these games, you just, try to move as best as you can, and eventually, after you play them quite a bit, you kind of get an understanding of how the game plays and how it feels and everything.
I mean, particularly in the Resident Evil games, because it's a fixed camera. It changes look when you get out of view of the camera, it snaps to another view, which was jarring at first, but I mean, once you get, like you said, once you get used to it, it's a lot of fun.
It becomes a smooth motion where you can move the character that you're playing as, and in this one you're playing as Leon S. Kennedy, who's like a rookie cop, and also Claire Redfield, who is the sister of Chris Redfield from the first game. So it's a really good game. I actually found out about it. This is going to sound ridiculous. We didn't get Comedy Central in my town at the time, but the high school because it was high school. It was like I was like, I don't know, maybe a freshman or a sophomore. I think it was a sophomore. So it was probably like 98, 99, like right around that time, when the game was coming out. So we didn't get Comedy Central, and South Park was like the biggest show back then. And trust me, this is going to Resident Evil, I promise.
Oh, I know this.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we had kids that we shared a school with because they didn't have a high school, so they would get bussed in because their town was smaller, so they would get bussed into our high school, and they were students there. So, but they did have Comedy Central. So this kid Joe had a racket going where he would sell people VHS compilations with the commercials and everything of the first season of South Park.
That's so genius.
He fit the whole thing on a VHS tape. And one of the commercials during the Halloween episode with the one with the pink eye, great episode.
Yeah.
But one of the commercials was for Resident Evil 2, and that commercial was actually, if I recall, directed by George Romero, the creator of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, etc., etc. So I saw this commercial and was like, what is this? I need to play this game. And I ended up picking up a PlayStation, I think right around that time. So it was one of the games that I picked up. So this was actually my first Resident Evil experience.
That's a good way to start.
And then I went back and played the first one. So, but I was hooked. I mean, like, I was super, super into the series.
Remember, we even got you the deck building game. We need to play more of that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, the deck. Have you played the deck building game, Jared?
No, I this is the first time I'm hearing about it, actually.
Oh, yeah. No, dude, there's a Resident Evil deck building game, like trading card deck building.
Yeah.
And it is pretty fun. We've played it a couple times here, because I have the main set and then I have an expansion.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 or 3 different expansions, actually.
Yeah. There's quite a few. I mean, it was pretty popular for a while, and it's definitely worth picking up.
Interesting.
If you like card games, it's really cool. So, anyways, the track front haul, we don't know specifically who it was composed by, meaning the individual composer, but we do know the 3 composers. It's actually, initially we said 1 composer. It's actually 3 composers: Masami Ueda, Shizaku Uchiyama, and Shun Nishigaki. So, what about Masami Ueda?
So Masami Ueda has worked on composition for a number of games, including the original Resident Evil, the director's cut of Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and then from there a number of other still really good games: Devil May Cry, the Beautiful Joe series, Okami, a few games that you might be a little familiar with. Nier Automata, they did lead music implementation on.
So Shizaku Uchiyama and Shun Nishigaki are also Capcom composers, pretty much for most of their career. Worked on Mega Man 8 for Shizaku. Worked on Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 2. Piano 3 was the music composer on that. Under the Skin. And then Resident Evil 4 was the composer and arranger on that. And then did a couple other Resident Evil games like the Dark Side Chronicles, Devil May Cry 4, Mega Man 10. He composed one of the tracks or some of the tracks on that. But it looks like he jumped ship to Square Enix, at least for one title, where he was music data support on Theater Rhythm, Final Fantasy Curtain Call. So nice. Probably just helping out with gathering all the tracks, or maybe like working on some of the original tracks that were in that. And then Shun Nishigaki worked on a little bit older stuff, starting with Captain Commando in 1991, did the music for Super Street Fighter 2 in 1993, so maybe just adding to the Yoko Shimomura tracks. Kind of jumping around, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs was one of the composers on that. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
X-Men Children of the Atom, did like a bunch of fighting games all throughout the mid to late 90s, and then worked on Dino Crisis, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix was his final release. So
very nice.
Yeah, Resident Evil 2, great game, great soundtrack.
Absolutely.
Overall.
So looks like Janine is signaling us. We have a caller coming in. Let's hit that button.
All right, caller, you're on the air.
Okay, I got the powder. And the fuse as well? Yeah, crap, I knew I forgot something.
Excuse me?
All right, I'll be right back.
I think we're getting butt dialed again. This happens so often. I apologize.
Yeah.
Our guest shouldn't have to
deal with that.
Shouldn't have to deal with that. Well,
let's move on to our next track.
Yeah, Justin, what do you got for us?
So next up, we're going to hear a track from Alone in the Dark, which was released on the PC in 1992. The track is called "Run for Your Life," and it was composed by Felipe Vache. Welcome back. That was Run for Your Life, which came off of Alone in the Dark, released on the PC in 1992, and it was composed by Felipe Vache.
I never played this one, I'll be honest.
I will be honest as well, neither have I.
Okay, this is going to make for a really bad time because neither have I.
It's all right.
I know that Alone in the Dark is an inspiration for Resident Evil.
Oh, was it?
I believe that and Sweet Home.
Yeah,
were
absolutely.
the two inspirations.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's sort of a classic. I remember when they re-released, and they rebooted or recreated Alone in the Dark in the mid-2000s, I want to say.
Yeah.
And some of my friends were really excited about it because like they thought of the original Alone in the Dark as like a staple, almost like Half-Life 1. Like, it's one of those games where you got to play it.
Yeah.
And maybe someday I will, because reading about it and listening to some of the music, it seems like a lot of fun, just both for the spooky elements and that track right there. I really like. It has a very industrial feel due to those drums.
Oh, I was going to say those drums.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're a killer.
I was going to say tribal.
Tribal. Yeah, it feels kind of tribal too. With overall, I got kind of an industrial feel. It's very atmospheric. Like there's not too much going on, but sometimes that's all you need to get in the right mood.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
And I mean, a lot of the tracks that we're picking for this episode aren't exactly, pulse pounding, awesome like squiddly meadlies or
no
anything like
but
that.
But your pulse will be pounding when you're playing the game. You're being chased by horrors and zombies.
So this game is actually one of the first two games that utilized polygonal characters over pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And it's apparently the first ever 3D survival horror game, which I did not know.
There's a little contention with that because...
Oh, really?
The idea was there. This is something I'm... Speaking about the retrospective, I've been arguing with people in my comment section back and forth because even though I do have a really odd idea of survival horror, this game, essentially when Resident Evil created survival horror, it was borrowing very heavily from Alone in the Dark, but I think survival horror has to be, and this is my own thing, it has to stay within the Resident Evil 1, 2, 3 kind of structure where it's essentially a puzzle-solving adventure game and underneath everything, and then on the surface you have the idea of combat and stuff like that, because in each of the games it wasn't so much about killing all the enemies in front of you to get to the goal. The goal was to solve puzzles, and part of the puzzles were what enemies to kill, because you only ever had enough ammo to take out maximum 75% of the enemies in an area. So I tend to look at survival horror more as a puzzle genre, like adventure games, old PC point-and-click adventure games, which makes sense because that's where Alone in the Dark came from, is that PC scene. Like, and even with the music when we're listening to, you can hear those like synthy electronic drums. That's such a 90s PC sound. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got that 90s MIDI, not quite Red Book audio, but very clearly like trying to sound bigger and boomier than anything that was out at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in 92, that was right around the era when the Sega CD was on its way out, or on its way in.
Oh, yeah,
rather.
Yeah.
So, you were going to start seeing more, like, advanced stuff. And really, the TurboGrafx CD, we can't really even count, just because it was just kind of a last-ditch effort by NEC to put something out that could kind of compete with the Sega CD. So despite the fact that it was like huge in Japan, but
yeah, I mean the PC Engine stuff has always been way bigger over there than over here.
Yeah, this game, I guess you could play as two different characters.
Yeah, there's Edward Carnby, who's a private investigator who was sent to look for a piano that was supposedly in the house where everything takes place. He was sent by an antiques dealer. The other character is Emily Hartwood, who is the niece of someone who killed themselves in this house. So she's actually also looking for the piano because she believes that there is a hidden drawer that contains like a suicide note or something.
So what's really interesting about this game, and I kind of agree with Jared in the sense that I don't necessarily know if I would say that this is a survival horror game. I think that it definitely inspired Resident Evil, but one thing that I notice is the colors in this game. The colors, Duke. The colors. The colors are like they looks like a cutscene from like Money for Nothing or Money or Nothing or whatever. That.
Oh yeah, Money for Nothing. The song.
The Dire Straits song.
Yes.
Right. The music video for that. Everything looks like really big and goofy looking, like especially the characters. Whereas like Resident Evil, the characters and the backgrounds particularly, they look like they're bleeding regarding the colors.
Yeah.
The colors like are super oversaturated, where like you have these like really like mahogany red color, like red rock, and then you'll have like, you know, really dark deep blues, you know, like the color scheme in Resident Evil really, to me, is just so iconic in those games.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you're right about that. It was super bright, which was more common, you know, for PC game design at the time. And like you were saying, the simplified geometry of the 3D models, it's so charming. Man, I love old 3D CGI stuff. And when computer games started messing around with full 3D polygonal animated models, like they all had that similar where like, okay, we can have like a cone and maybe a square, make a character out of that somehow.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the composer on this one.
So the composer, Philippe Vacher, is a French composer who has done a number of interesting works. They did sound on the original SimCity in 1991, and then after that, Alone in the Dark was their second game. They did the original music for it, and then very related, in 1993 they did music for Call of Cthulhu: Shadow of the Comet. And I say they're related because Alone in the Dark was actually intended to be part of a Cthulhu-based mythos series.
Oh, okay.
And was originally designed around the whole idea of like the H.P. Lovecraft stories, and then it sort of, I wouldn't say spiraled into something else, but it sort of grew into something else.
Huh.
They went on to do Time Commando in 1996,
That makes
Toy
sense.
Commander in 1999, Toy Racer in 2000, and then sort of the last thing that he did was in 2008, called a game called Nicopole: Secrets of the Immortals.
Oh man, he did that. That's interesting. That was a really weird adventure game out of France. It was super odd.
Huh. All right, so now we're going to move into my pick. This is Dead Space. And this came out on the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and the PC in 2008. The track is called Do Not Vomit, Do Not Shout. And it's by Jason Graves and Rod Abernathy.
Definitely don't do those two things at the same time.
No. Welcome back. Hope your ears are still okay from that. That was Dead Space on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, the 2008 release. The track, which hopefully you did not do, is Do Not Vomit and Do Not Shout. And that is by Jason Graves. Jason Graves actually composed it. Rod Abernathy was involved with kind of the soundtrack on an initial brainstorming kind of aspect. But for the most part, it was all Jason Graves, and that's coming from Don Vecca, who is the audio director. Fun fact about Don Vecca, he did the awesome soundtrack to Road Rash 3 on the Genesis. Yeah. Really good stuff. Like some of the best drumming I've ever heard on the Genesis from that track, in my opinion. Yeah. So I love this game. And, you had touched previously on a game, like a survival horror game that you could play with friends, and they'll kind of help you out, kind of like an interactive experience. Yep. And that was Dead Space for me. At the time when the game came out, I was living in an apartment with some friends of mine. It's basically like a male frat house kind of thing, And my buddy Brian was hanging out with his, at the time, girlfriend. I had just picked up Dead Space, and we started playing through it, and we would all take turns, all three of us, trying to figure out where to go and what to do, and that's kind of how we beat the game. So I kind of watched them mostly play it, and then I went separately and played it on my own. And then after I beat it once, I loved it so much I started it up again, just so I could try to collect everything and get all the upgrades and whatnot, try to get all the achievements. But
very cool.
Yeah. Have you played this one?
No, I have not played any of the Dead Space series.
Really?
I've seen them. I've not watched them being played, but I've seen the game. I've seen the ads.
Right.
They look pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I never really pegged them for survival horror though.
It totally is. Jared,
you're out of your mind.
You played this?
I love the Dead Space games.
Okay.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
But I would not agree that they're survival horror.
No?
I think that they're action horror, which is fine because Dead Space 1 and 2 were just killer.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
But I think the puzzle-solving aspect of the gameplay for survival horror can't just be limited to a mini game. For example, with Dead Space, you use his little psi thing to, say, move a block into a block-shaped hole.
Right.
I feel
it's more
the
like
gameplay
Resident
needs
Evil 5.
I could say that, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would agree.
Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, where it's more like action based, I would say.
Which is fine because, first off, Resident Evil 5 was really, really good. Yeah. And Dead Space, I would say probably Dead Space is a scarier and more visceral playing game than Resident Evil 5 for me.
Yeah.
It had such a good atmosphere.
It's so brutal. This is so brutal, it's Brutal McNoodle.
Oh, Brutal McNoodle. Oh, Lord.
This was the first game in a long time to make me jump.
Wow.
Because enemies would come down from the rafters. Either that or you'd be walking. You play as this engineer called Isaac Clarke, which is a take on Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke.
Yep.
Right.
Oh,
and
I never knew that. Wow.
Oh, yeah. You are boarding this ship called the USG Ishimura, basically to find out, very similar to Resident Evil, but basically find out what happened to the people that were previously on it. And
you say it's similar to Resident Evil. I think you mean similar to Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I haven't seen that. So.
Really?
No.
If you
man, you would love
scary,
it.
That's terrifying.
Okay, awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's literally Dead Space the movie. It's insane.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Awesome. Sweet.
Then I guess you have played Dead Space.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
No, you pretty much have all the psychological aspects of it. Yeah, I mean, they are shot for shot so similar. It's crazy.
Wow.
That's awesome. Now I have to go play Dead Space.
Yeah, it's really good. So, yeah, you have this suit called the Rig, and you have these weapons. It's basically these blasters, and you can kind of change them around, upgrade them and whatnot, get different upgrades and different weapons. You get repurpose. It's called a plasma cutter, and you could get different versions of it, like a rotary saw or a flamethrower or stuff like that. And you're taking out these horrific corpses and these hideous monsters. They're called the necromorphs, and the craziest thing is this game really kind of messes with you because you'll be playing. And then you'll turn around, and an enemy will just be right behind you. There's a button to do a turn.
Yeah.
And so you do the turn, and you'll just have an enemy right there. Like, you would have absolutely no idea.
This is all in first person?
So it's over-the-shoulder style, like Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
What makes the game even more kind of atmospheric is there's no HUD. There's no HUD. So it's literally just... I mean, there's kind of a HUD in the sense that you can look at your gun, and your gun will tell you, like, where you're at. I think that's... It's been a while since I played the game, but I'm pretty sure that's what happens, is you can look at your...
It's like using augmented reality on your phone. So you're looking at your gun, and the, let's say, ammo counter for your gun will track with your gun. So as you go to aim, the ammo counter stays in a similar spot above your gun.
Right.
And then the way you can tell your health is where your spinal cord is on the suit. It'll be lit up as so many bars, and as you increase the suit's durability and stuff, you get more bars. Like, it was super immersive.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, there isn't a HUD. I mean, there is a HUD, but there technically isn't.
It's hidden, right.
It's perfect.
It's so good.
That's cool.
In my mind, it was like a landmark title, you know. And sound-wise, you know, this track is just nightmarish. It's going through hell in a handbasket.
Nightmare is a word that I might use.
Yeah.
The random aspects of, you know, metal banging around, the someone ham-fisting a piano.
It's very avant-garde.
Oh yeah,
it's very avant-garde, and there's
super frantic.
There's so many like crazy, like, this is the craziest time signature. I don't even know what it was.
Was there a time signature?
There was a time signature. I could tell you that much, but I don't even. I don't
know
even
what
know
I think. I think so far what we've been listening to is a whole lot of atmospheric ambient tracks, right? I think this is the most song that we've listened to so far. I think it had a little more, a little less of a smooth structure. Like, it was definitely up and down a lot, but you know what it reminds me of? Is horror movie music. Where you have the stringed instruments just screeching in the background, like, and then once the beat came in, it was like it felt to me meandering like a big thing is chasing you kind of slowly. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it had like this like thunderous like dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
and that kind of. I love that groove because it almost had a groove aspect to it. If you really look at it,
I can see that.
Yeah,
it was. It actually made me think of the original series of Star Trek. Any situation where Kirk is like fighting some monster, like not quite the classic lizard man versus Kirk song, but almost like one of those, but more horror-esque. Like if there was a real deep horror episode of the original series, this is the song that I would imagine would be playing when Kirk is getting his butt kicked.
Now I want to hear William Shatner voice Isaac Clarke in like a movie, because they did do an animated movie for Dead Space, but
they did
really
a couple
great.
of them actually.
Stop, Necromorphs! You must get away from me. From me? Real quick about the composer Jason Graves. He won an award for this soundtrack, actually, BAFTA award or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he won an award. He's done so much stuff. I'm not even going to be able to touch on it, but we'll lightly touch on it. He started with The Hobbit in 2003, doing like orchestration on that, and then just mostly did like Star Trek games. So there you go. Did like Star Trek Legacy in 2006, Star Trek Conquest in 2007. He did like a bunch of like shovelware stuff, like Pets Horse Club, crap like that. He did Cop the Recruit, which was a cool DS game in 2009, shortly after Dead Space. And then he did like a little bit of Command and Conquer with the fourth entry, Tiberian Twilight. He did the Fear composition for Fear. It's like F3AR. It's another like survival horror.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and then pretty much that's where he took off, and he's just been killing it ever since. Tomb Raider, the reboot, he was the composer on the reboot for Tomb Raider. Devil May Cry, DMC, Dead Space 3 he did, and 2 as well. The Order 1886 he did Until Dawn, which is another like survival horror-esque kind of game. Evolve in 2015. He did Friday the 13th, the game, in 2017.
Oh, I'm familiar with that. It's the one you get a bunch of people play the kids, and then one person plays the monster.
One person plays Jason. Yep. And then finally, 2018, he did Moss.
Yeah. That is a game that I want to play more of. I tried out the VR on that.
Oh, cool.
And it's pretty neat.
Cool. Yeah. So that's Jason Graves in a nutshell. Really pretty awesome composer. All right, we're going to come full circle. We got Jared's track up next. What do you got for us?
Okay, so what we have coming up is Out of Phase by Yoko Shimomura off the PlayStation 1 game Parasite Eve, coming out in 1998. Probably one of my favorite survival horror games that isn't a survival horror game.
Yes. Awesome.
Nice. Let's listen.
Okay, so we're back. That was Out of Phase by Yoko Shimomura off of the PS1 game Parasite Eve from 1998.
Oh man, I love this game. It is so good.
It is.
I haven't played this one in a long time. I was
man.
saying during the break, I played it when it first came out, and I remember having a lot of fun with it. But I haven't touched it since then, so I feel like I've forgotten it all.
Oh, it's killer.
I haven't beaten this one, but I remember playing it back in the day, and pretty much that was at the time when I was just grabbing anything Square Soft related.
Yeah.
I mean, the bug got me with Chrono Trigger, and then from there, Final Fantasy VII when I got the PS1, and then from there, I was just buying anything with Square's name on it, pretty much.
Yeah.
And when I saw that this was more of like a horror type game, I thought let's go for it. So tell us a little bit about this one, Jared, and your experience with it.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw previews in game magazines. This is another game I picked. Am I showing my age when I say that?
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, yes, but also we're all old.
Yeah, we're right there.
Okay.
With you.
Yeah.
All right, so at least
I
I'm not
remember
alone.
reading like PSN.
Yeah, no.
Which was the one that always had the sexy art from like J. Scott Campbell.
Oh god, it was so good.
That was that was my favorite PSN magazine, because it always had awesome cheesecake art, but it also had like really awesome looks at PlayStation exclusive games.
Yeah,
so
that guy's art was so unique to him. Everybody had big lips, and the colors were all like muted oranges, and I loved it. Every single issue was a work of art. That's a lot.
So tell us about your experience with this one.
I had a really cool kind of personal experience with Parasite Eve, because as a teenager, just like you, if it had the Squaresoft logo on it, I was already committed to buying it. You know what I mean? Like, this was at a time, and this was at a time when you could do that, and 95% of the time come out with an incredible game, unlike nowadays. But I was just immediately sold on it. I would see magazine ads, and it coined itself as the cinematic RPG. And you know, when I was a kid, I was like, oh man, the cinematic RPG. Oh, that's not. And then I thought about it. That doesn't make any sense. Whatever. It looks incredible. And like I said, I grew up really poor, and my parents, for one of my birthdays, they were super sad because they couldn't get me anything, and they felt like they hadn't done very much by getting me this copy of official PlayStation magazine, and they kind of felt bad about it, you could tell, but I cherished that magazine. And it was the Parasite Eve release issue, and it went through like the first I would say like 20 minutes of the game, right up until the very first Eve fight, or the second Eve fight into the sewer where she gets the crocodile thing. And I could walk you through that game blind with a gag in my mouth, because I've read through that section so much. And that specific release of that magazine, I appreciated it so much, because not only did my parents not have any money, but with the very little amount of funds they had, they bought me this magazine, and I still have it to this day. I cherish this release of official PlayStation magazine. So when it came time for me actually being able to buy the Parasite Eve game, it just meant a lot to me, and a lot of that had to do with Yoko Shimomura's incredible soundtrack, especially with this song. I think this is like classic Yoko Shimomura. You have the piano in the background, and then an electric kind of like 90s house sounding drum set. I love it.
Yeah, she said that she went for an inorganic, emotionless soundtrack experience for this. Yoko Shimomura, her music is fantastic. She's done so much. Like, I just will never touch on it all, but to give you 4 games: Final Fight, Street Fighter 2, she did obviously Parasite Eve, so we won't count that one. Breath of Fire. She did pretty much all the Mario and Luigi games and the Mario RPG games, and she did Kingdom Hearts. So great composer. Oh, and I want to toss in a personal favorite, Radiant Historia, which I've been playing. I've been playing that on the 3DS, and it is fantastic. A really good RPG. So she's one of my favorite composers. She's really good.
Yeah, she is phenomenal. And I have to say, this song is itself, I find it very very relaxing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's you say like emotionless, and I mean, I guess relaxed isn't really an emotion; it's a state of being. But I don't know. I could sleep to this song. So, and not like it's boring.
Oh, no. Right.
And I have before, so yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. It's very like psychological, but also like very gripping at the same time, like kind of lackluster in a way. Like it's missing something, but like you couldn't ever say what would make it better.
Oh, it's missing trombones.
Trombones.
That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. A whole like ska rhythm section. So, but this one's based on a novel which is written by Hideaki Sina, and so yeah, it's based on like a psychological like horror type thing. And the game itself, like the plot, you play as this character Aya Brea, and she goes out on this blind date to Carnegie Hall, and all of a sudden people start spontaneously combusting. Pretty much everybody in the building except for the actress on stage, Melissa Pierce. And so you're kind of like, what the hell? Like, why is this one woman not bursting into flames? Why am I not bursting into flames? And so you know that this woman is connected somehow, so you give chase after her, and then you run into all these creatures and stuff, and then it kind of goes back to the police station where you're kind of like taking on the role of this police officer, Aya Brea. For Aya Brea, I have to bring this up because I don't know the next time we'll be able to play a Parasite Eve track. Right around the time when this game came out, this is going to be, oh my god. I don't even, like, I'm about to tell this story and you're all going to be like, you are a weirdo.
Oh, good.
/ loser.
Perfect.
/ weirdo.
We knew that, though. So
yeah.
Just go.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So, do you remember the song Genie in a Bottle?
Yes.
Yep.
The Christina Aguilera song, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Christina Aguilera looks like Aya Brea to me.
Okay.
Because in all the promo art, she's wearing the exact same outfit, like the white top with the blue jeans or whatever, and she kind of has like a similar, not now, but like back when she was like, 17, or 18 or whatever, she looked like Aya Brea. So I always associate this game with Genie in a Bottle for that music video that I remember watching, like getting that burned into my brain. So that's like a little guilty pleasure.
That's fair.
Of
You know,
I don't know why.
I don't think that's that weird.
I don't think that's too weird because, in a lot of the promotional art, it was Aya Brea in the white T-shirt and the blue jeans.
Right.
And there's a part in the Genie in the Bottle music video, I want to say, where she's just in a white shirt with the belly kind of showing in the blue jeans. I think there's probably a pretty good argument that they may have based her off of a little bit, seeing as how Konami already did that with Silent Hill 2 as well. So.
Yep. So there you go. There you have it. It's more or less confirmed.
Yeah.
Aya Brea is based on Christina Aguilera.
Yep.
So there you go.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. This is an XVGM Radio exclusive. So speaking of exclusives, it looks like we're getting another call.
Oh yes.
Let's go ahead and take it. Caller, you are on the air with XVGM Radio.
Okay, I got the fuse. And the powder as well? Yeah, crap, I knew I forgot something.
This
All
again?
right, I'll be right back.
I mean, it'd be great if he actually called and requested something.
I'm very confused where this guy is, and his voice sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I don't know.
Very.
All right. Well, anyways, let's move on because he hung up. So, what do you got for us?
So next up, we're going to listen to "Shot Down in Flames." This was from Silent Hill Origins on the PS2 in 2007, and again composed by Akira Yamaoka and vocals by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn.
Endless
Welcome back. That was Shot Down in Flames off of Silent Hill Origins, which came out on the PS2 in 2007. It was composed by Akira Yamaoka and sung by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn.
I cannot listen to Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and not think of Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
Because she voiced the Major.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Did you forget about that?
Yes. I was trying to figure out why it sounded familiar, and that's a very good reason.
I had not heard of her until we did the Silent Hill episode on Pixel Tunes Radio. Since then, I had watched the first season of Standalone Complex.
Oh, good for you.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. I cannot hear her singing voice without hearing her as the Major.
Yep.
Which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, no,
I
that makes
voice.
sense. I mean, good. She's got a great singing voice.
Yeah.
That character was great. I see nothing wrong.
True. Melody-wise, I think her voice brings a lot to this track. It's like a hard rock, bluesy kind of vibe to it.
For sure.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Her voice brings a really strong, like, vibrant melody to the track that I don't think any other vocalist could have probably delivered quite so well.
Yeah.
Jared, I know you're a big Silent Hill buff.
Giant Silent Hill buff.
So, what do you think about this one?
I love it. Just like you said, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, she makes the song. And I will say this, Silent Hill Origins is a terrible game. On its own, if you look at it,
game with a good soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. You put Akira, and that's the thing. I really hate Silent Hill Homecoming, but I listen to that soundtrack nonstop because Akira Yamaoka is amazing. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn does a track on that. I think 2 tracks on that as well, and those are really good songs as well. She has such a hard edge to her singing voice, kind of like it's smooth and pretty. But the kind of smooth and pretty you'd get if you smoked every day for 30 years. That kind of, what I mean? She has a raspiness to it that it sounds hard and gives it a little bit of an edge. And Akira Yamaoka just writes really good, just solid kind of, it's hard to explain the type of guitar rock that he makes. The tuning of his guitar almost reminds me of a surf rock kind of sound with with a little bit of the reverb on the higher notes to kind of make them a little bit lower. He sounds like you said, a classic kind of blues guitar type of sound to it.
Right. He's not as much twang.
Yeah, exactly.
To it that you would hear with surf rock type stuff, like B-52's era.
Yeah, I mean,
more like
the man,
more bluesy.
It's insane how recognizable his style is, even though he has like 3 of them and switches between them interchangeably. Because he can also serve up a really good, just harsh industrial track with.
Oh, absolutely. And heavy metal too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, so the Contra Shattered Soldier soundtrack, which is one of my favorites, was also co-composed by him and also Sota Fujimori, which I think it's a little more Sota Fujimori than Akira Yamaoka, but there's definitely some stuff in there that when you listen to it, you're like, oh yeah, this is totally Akira Yamaoka.
Yeah.
I gotta wonder though, like, what was Konami thinking with making this kind of soundtrack? Because it just, to me, it doesn't sound Konami-ish. You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds weird, but I think that they were going for something that would be a little bit more American sounding, a little bit less Japanese sounding, and I think they nailed it. Yeah,
well, I mean, considering the game, I mean, the game is taking place in America.
Yeah,
so that I guess makes a lot of sense. But no, I think it does sound different than what you'd normally expect out of Konami, but I think it was a fantastic idea, like spot on.
So with Origins, it's a game where I guess you're playing as a character named Travis Grady.
Yeah. And
he's trying to find out some info about like a girl that's that he at one point in time had rescued from a burning home.
Well, it's actually the start of the game.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you start off with that, and then have you played this one?
No, but I've seen it. Most of the games in here, I've not played, but I've seen.
But you've seen, yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's called Origins because it takes place a few years before the first one, and the ending of this actually sets up depending on the ending you get, it sets up the start of the first Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Jared, you were saying that you're not a fan of this one or Homecoming. Curious what ruined it for you?
I'm like he said, I'm a huge Silent Hill buff, and the thing about the Silent Hill games are, at least with the first 3, the 4th one is super hard to break into. Like it takes a lot of getting together with other people who have played Silent Hill 4 the room to actually figure out. But Silent Hill 1 through 3 are fairly straightforward once you get past the surface. So if you were to casually play through Silent Hill 3, there would be a lot of stuff that you missed out on. But once you knew where to go and you figured out the mechanics a little bit and you knew to search around for files, and you would catch a lot of the stuff that's underneath the surface, and the story would present itself to you. I think a lot of people typically, and I don't blame them for this, because, you know, you play video games to have fun, right? So I typically play video games to experience a really cool story and to kind of get myself lost in a different world. So I replay games a lot that are very atmospheric, like Stalker, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and I just kind of sit in their world, you know. So I've found the story that's in Silent Hill, and you know, a lot of other people like me. There's a story there. It's just that the creators of Silent Hill weren't keen on saying it all out loud in a cutscene so that everybody could get it the first time around. And this game is a perfect example of that, because here is Konami, the official developer, putting out a game about Silent Hill. It's a prequel. It takes place before Silent Hill 1, and the girl that Grady was looking for was Cheryl from Silent Hill 1, and they not only they got a key part of Silent Hill 1's lore incorrect in the first not even 10 minutes of the game, because you rescue Cheryl and she's at the center of this like burning pentagram to show that it's a ritual that the cult has done, and that's a common misconception, is that she was burnt on purpose for the ritual. The idea is in Silent Hill 1 that during the ritual of impregnating Cheryl, because she has this psychic power, she could birth the cult's demon god into the world and bring their ideal world into being. During that process, her psychic powers were going crazy because she was experiencing immense amounts of pain and psychological stress, and the boiler of the house that they were using for that blew up, and that's why the fire started. That's how Cheryl got burnt. So when you play this game, and then it's implied that the cult has sacrificed this girl. She's laying in a pentagram on fire, and she doesn't want you to help her. They retcon a lot of stuff, and they got very lazy. They pretty much inserted their own pyramid head into it with the butcher, and it's not a good Silent Hill game, because they ruined the other world. You know, in the other Silent Hill games, when you're at a certain point in the game, it'll switch over to the other world, which is this just grating, terrible, demonic, hellish place where, like, you know, the wall is now replaced by metal fencing, and there's rusted metal everywhere. And in Silent Hill Origins, you can control the transition between the real world and the other world, and I think that kind of takes away a lot of the horror of it, because now you're in control of going there, and you could just decide to go or decide not to go, and I kind of think that ruins it a little bit.
Yeah, they tend to do that quite a bit in the Silent Hill series, where they have like certain aspects of the elements kind of affecting the environment that you're in. Like, isn't there one where it's like flooding everywhere or something like that?
There are sections
like a lot of water.
Shattered Memories where water floods in and then freezes immediately. So there's like a lot of ice blocks and stuff, but yeah.
So, yeah, Akira Yamaoka, I don't think we talked too much about him in the first break. He's mostly done work on Konami-based stuff. He did sound design on games like Snatcher, which I know Jared is a big fan of.
Absolutely.
Sparkster, the original like Sparkster, like the sequel to Rocket Knight Adventures. Mm-hmm. Vandal Hearts in '96. Salamander, he did the Deluxe Pack Plus. Kind of jumping around, he did NBA in the Zone 98. He was the composer and guitarist on that one. Kensei Sacred Fist, which is a really cool fighting game. It's kind of like one of those obscure, very Japanese fighting games that they brought overseas as well. Then he moved over to like the Silent Hill series and DDR, like Dance Dance Revolution, Guitar Geek, Guitar Freaks, Beatmania, like all that type of stuff. Rumble Roses and Killer is Dead, so he kind of jumped ship and went with Grasshopper Studios with Suda 51. And then his final game that he's done fairly recently, he was sound director on Cinemora EX, or Cinemora EX.
Oh, Cinemora. I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he did the sound direction on that. So all these tracks that we're playing so far have been very atmospheric to the games themselves, and we're going to actually move into a game that I picked which barely anybody played. And there's a good reason for that, which we'll talk about when we start discussing the game itself. This is Fatal Frame, Maiden of the Black Water. This came out on the Wii U exclusively in 2014. And this is Lost House, and it's by Ayako Toyota. Not like car Toyota, but Toyota. Let's hit it. All right, wake up.
What?
That was Fatal Frame, Maiden of Black Water, and that was exclusively on the Wii U in 2014. I believe it was released in 2015 in the US and Europe, which we'll get into in just a second. The track is Lost House, and it's by Ayako Toyota. So, interesting history on this one. As a Wii U supporter, there were not many games to come out.
No.
That I was... Well, number one, there were not that many games that came out, period.
Yeah, period. End of sentence.
Yeah. But Fatal Frame was a series that Tecmo released on the PS2, the Xbox. They made a couple games here and there. And I never was really interested in any of them, mostly because I don't know, it's a little creepy because you're playing as these very underage girls, and there's a little bit of a leering eye, I guess you could say. They there's like these unlockable swimsuits which you can get, lingerie, stuff like that. You know, it is Tecmo, so, you know, Dead or Alive. So Fatal Frame is a game, it's most of the games are based on like Japanese lore and history, not necessarily non-fictional. It's, you know, this game in particular is a fictional story, though it does take inspiration from real things. There's a fictional place called the Hikami Mountain, and it's very famous for like suicides and like weird, creepy spiritual stuff going on there. And that whole area is just like huge like bodies of water. That's why throughout this whole entire soundtrack you may hear like water trickling.
Right.
And that's mostly the reason. A lot of tracks have like a lot of that water trickling sound to it. It's kind of like embedded in with the soundtrack itself. Yeah. But there's these like shrine maidens that exist in this game, and essentially what happens is you play as 3 different characters. One is Yuri Kozukata, she has like this spiritual ability to bring people from a shadow realm into like the real time, because she's a descendant of one of the Hikami shrine maidens. Oh. And then there's Ren Hojo, who's an author and a friend of Yuri, and then and that's a male character. He's basically trying to write his new book, so he goes up to the mountain. Right. And then there's another character, Miyu Hinasaki, who is the daughter of Fatal Frame protagonist Miku Hinasaki. So they did try to, you know, kind of tether this one together, but the whole game is just like covered in water. I mean, you're walking through water, you're walking through caves, you're walking through buildings that, you know, it's constantly really dark, dingy, rainy. And it's a perfect time of the year to play a game like this. Yeah. So it's worth tracking down on the Wii U. This game I did actually get, I did download it, and you know, it never came out physically, so we did get the digital version. And I tried it out. I did play the demo at first, and then I tried playing through the game a little bit. And it's a really fascinating game. It's unlike anything I've really ever played, and it's because it utilizes the Wii U gamepad exclusively. This can't be ported pretty much anywhere else. No. So you're moving the gamepad as your camera, because in these Fatal Frame games, you shoot the camera with your controller normally, and you press a button on the regular controller. The camera goes up, you take a photo of the ghost, and then you get points or whatever. Like basically, that's how you defeat the spirits or whatever, or capture them, if you will, with this. I think it's called the camera obscura or something like that. Yes. Yeah. So
that's it, yeah.
With Maiden of Black Water, you're playing with the Wii U gamepad. That is the camera. So you have to move in like a sort of 360 kind of view where you can like manipulate, like move all around. It's very atmospheric, and it kind of feels very different. It's not like anything I've ever played before. So, and that may be good to some people, that may be bad to some people, but it's a really, truly unique experience in my opinion, and it's worth checking out. I don't think it's going to get ported anywhere else.
Yeah,
so
no, I don't know how they could.
No.
Yeah. So you haven't played this one, Jared, right?
I have not played this one. I haven't really played anything for the Wii, actually. I was the part
Wii
of
the
the
Wii U?
Majority of Planet Earth who have not owned a Wii.
Yeah. The Wii U.
I'm familiar with the series, though.
Yeah, I've not really played too much of the series, to be honest, but this one struck me as being a little less creepy, I guess you could say, in the aspect that at least the women were all grown up that you play as in the game. So, and they did like include in the Japanese version like lingerie, like and it kind of fits because one of the main characters is a lingerie model. So it kind of fits. So they took.
That's a good way to stick.
Yeah,
that stuff
right. But they took that out and they replaced it with a Zero Suit Samus suit and a Zelda, like Princess Zelda suit instead, like her dress.
Now, this is a question from someone who hasn't played it. Yeah. I've only ever played the first Fatal Frame game, and I liked it despite... I haven't never been a big fan of Japanese type horror, where like a lot of the stuff is pretty much implied, and there isn't a lot of stuff out there in the open for you. You kind of have to just use your imagination. Right. So I'm not big into the Japanese style ghost story stuff.
Like Ringu.
But I did get into the atmosphere. Yeah, exactly. That's never been my deal, but I really, really liked Fatal Frame 1. Never played any of the others. But from what I hear, this one has you rescuing characters.
Yeah.
If that's there's like a bunch of characters. See, that kind of ruins what I liked about the first one is you go in there, I think, with your twin sister. I want to say it's been so long, but you're essentially on your own, and at the very most, there's you and one other person inside of this old, like, Shinto-looking shrine, and I kind of feel like that would ruin it for me, having so many people around.
So it is a very isolated experience in the sense that the parts that I played, I haven't beaten this game yet, but the parts that I have played, it's a very open-ended kind of area. It's not like Resident Evil, like the older Resident Evils, but you're moving around with one other person. So you start off with this, the woman who's like the spiritual medium, and she's kind of guiding you and teaching you how to use the camera as you go along. So that's kind of the tutorial experience in the game that you're going through. And later on, it's just you, pretty much. So this girl goes missing or whatever, and so at that point it's just the main female protagonist, so you're kind of playing as her. But then at that point you're just finding ghosts. You're just going around and you're taking the pictures of the ghosts, and they kind of come out of nowhere, and some of them are angry, some of them are, not angry, they're just like ghosts. So it's creepy. There's a water aspect to it, as far as like there's a lot of water pretty much everywhere, and the characters will get wet often. And so there's like a wetness meter to track like the dampness for the character, and the the amount of wetness will have effects on the character as far as like damage done. Like the wetter you are, the more damage can be done. Regarding this track, it's more in line with what you would hear if you were in a movie. Like like one of these types of movies, like Ringu or whatever, these Japanese horror movies. It's really super ambient, and I love ambient music. So it's more in line with, some of the stuff from like Resident Evil or Silent Hill, where it's just like staticky noise or stuff like that. And I wanted to showcase that because that is an important part of survival horror. That
the atmosphere.
Making
you feel utterly creeped out is part of the scary experience.
Exactly. And since this is like Halloween season, we had to go with an ambient type of track. Real quick, Ayako Toyota did a bunch of stuff, mostly for Tecmo, starting with Kagero Deception 2. Did a bunch of the work on the Dead or Alive games with Dead or Alive 5, Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. Did some of the Deception games as well, like Deception 4, Blood Ties, and also the Nightmare Princess. There was 2 separate releases. Did some Dynasty Warriors games and Warriors All Stars, and also pretty much all the Fatal Frame games.
Nice.
Yeah. So what do we got next?
Next up, we're going to be listening to The Second Floor Revisited off of Resident Evil, the original. And this was made by Makoto Tomozawa, Akira Kaida, and Masami Ueda, of course, the main man.
Cool. Let's listen.
Boy, Jill, this mansion sure is big and open-ended. Plenty of room to walk around in.
You said it, Barry. Thank goodness I brought the zombie gone.
Zombie gone? What's that?
Well, you know how you just killed 5 gross zombie spiders, 15 zombie scientists, and 3 zombie sharks?
Yeah? What about it?
Well, to be honest, those guts sure do smell.
Really? I didn't notice.
Like my grandpa's breath after an onion party.
What exactly is an onion party?
Don't worry about it.
Nah, I'm genuinely confused. Do you just rub onions all over yourself? Or do you just eat nothing but onion-based content?
Really feel like you're fixating on the wrong portion of the discussion here, Barry.
Sorry, Jill.
Anyways, spray some of the zombie gone on someone who's recently been covered by zombie guts, and they start smelling great in less than 5 minutes guaranteed. Here, watch.
5 minutes later.
Well, do I smell?
Like a bowl of cinnamon and pumpkin spice.
Awesome.
Yep, zombie gone also comes in Christmas pine scent, ocean breeze for the summer, and of course cotton candy for the kids.
Wow, thanks, Jill.
No, thank Bloomco.
Yes, Bloomco's Zombie Gone is sold at all Tide Raid, Dahlgreens, and VCS stores. Get it now for only $5.99 a bottle. Please note, do not spray directly in eyes or on nipples. Do not spray on zombies directly, as it does act as an exploding device on living dead flesh. Children in Utah, get your parents' permission to use. Zombie Gone comes with all you see here. Batteries not included.
All right, we are back. That was the second floor revisited from Resident Evil 1 with Makoto Tomozawa, Akira Kaida, and Masami Ueda.
Yes, yeah. Oh, such a classic.
Yes, I was just going to say,
Absolutely.
If your last Resident Evil track was the sort of classic for that game, I would say this sounds so familiar. I don't know how many times I ended up in that area.
Revisiting the mansion, yeah.
Revisiting the second floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really is key. And if you're playing a relatively maximized run through Resident Evil 1 and trying to get underneath the 2-hour mark, you'll be in that area a whole lot, back and forth. I went through, I think for this retrospective, I went over the 30 time mark for beating Resident Evil 1. And I think this may be the most iconic song for me because I heard it so much, just, maximizing the efficiency of getting this item and trying to get back to the item box as little as possible. So you end up in the second floor area of the West Wing a whole lot.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how people beat these games so quickly. Like, I guess just repetitive playthroughs, but like, I guess for me, Resident Evil was one of those games where I would play it and then be like, all right, cool, that was fun. I'll revisit this again in, I don't know, 4 years or 3 years or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's not my go-to
Right.
when it comes to like replaying games. So, I mean, to be honest, I've probably played the remake more than I've played the original, just because I reviewed it a couple years ago.
Yep.
So,
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Remake is, I'm actually playing through Remake right now as we speak.
oh, cool. Yeah. So I thought remake was probably the first remake ever done that possibly was a better game than the original in terms of an actual gameplay experience.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and the reason why is because you had Shinji Mikami, who felt that Resident Evil 1 was lacking because of the limitations he was having to work under because of the PS1 not being exactly the most powerful thing on Earth. And he just took everything that was on the PS1, put it into a GameCube game, and then added the stuff he thought was missing and did nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, I think most people tend to get a little overzealous. So he just said, no, the first game was good, we're just going to add the stuff that was missing, and he nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, this game has aged so well.
Yeah,
when
surprisingly well.
Unbelievably well. Like, when you play this game on the GameCube, even without composite, it looks phenomenal. It's really impressive visually. Yeah. The lighting, the shadow techniques, even like the characters and the way they move and everything. I mean, when they did the HD revision of this, it barely, I mean, like, you noticed a difference in the sense that the screen was brighter, the resolution was better and everything. But like, other than that, you kind of couldn't tell that much of a difference.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, it was you know what the big difference was? If you ever played the PC version of the remaster of Remake, the only big difference is 60 frames per second.
Right.
You wouldn't think that would be as big of a deal in a game like Resident Evil where it's mostly pre-rendered CG movies happening in the background, but if you've even played Resident Evil sort of kind of recently, the jump to 60 frames per second will just blow your mind.
Yeah, that's true. So the composers on this one, this very weird, wonky, atmospheric, kind of warbly track, were Akira Kaida and Makoto Tomozawa. So, Justin, what about Akira Kaida?
So, Akira Kaida is a composer doing mostly games for Capcom.
Yeah.
Started out back in 1995 doing Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dream, Night Warriors Darkstalker's Revenge, awesome game.
Yes.
Moved on to Resident Evil, as we just heard, as well as the director's cut. Breath of Fire, awesome. Dino Crisis, Mega Man games, Metal Man Battle Network 1 and 5.
And Breath of Fire 3.
Breath of Fire. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Breath of Fire 3,
the original Breath of Fire was
that's
Yoko
killer.
Shimomura, actually.
Yes. So some Mega Man Battle Network games in 2001, 2004, Mega Man ZX Advent 2007, Mega Man 10 in 2010, and most recently Super Smash Bros. For Wii U in 2014, doing music arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, who didn't do Smash Brothers music? And then Mega Man 10 is just like, she did like a track, probably.
Right.
Because Mega Man 10 was mostly like a hodgepodge of Capcom composers.
Right. There were many people that worked on that one.
Yeah, and then Makoto Tomozawa did, started working on games way back in 1991 with Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge. That was the Game Boy game. They were uncredited for the sound design on that. Mega Man X was one of the composers on that. Great Circus Mystery starring Mickey and Minnie. Mega Man 7, Resident Evil, and Resident Evil Director's Cut. Mega Man Legends, Resident Evil 2, Dino Crisis 2, etc. Piano 3, then jumped over to like Street Fighter 4 and all the various revisions of Street Fighter 4, and then was the sound line manager on Street Fighter 5. Great game, one of the best, good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, here's my question, because I'm sitting and looking at 3 names for this track, and I could think of like 2 instruments that were in it. I'm wondering if one guy in the background was like, make that synth a little more high pitched, and they're like, now we got to credit this guy.
Pretty much. And yeah, that's the problem with some of these games, is the names of the tracks are not exact. So if you go looking up Second Floor Revisited online, you may find it, and it may be a different track. So, you know, just keep that in mind when you go to look up the music for Resident Evil. Which it looks like we're getting another caller. It better not be this guy again.
All right, let's go.
Let's take a listen. Caller, you're on the air with XVGM Radio. Who is this?
All right, I got the stuff. 1 sack of powder and 1 fuse, like you ordered. Now, what do you got for me? Take this.
So does this happen a lot with you guys, or is this just a me thing? Because I feel like I'm bringing it on.
Not that common, but I mean, three times in one. Like we must be in his phone or something.
Then we must, yeah. I don't know. But you know, his voice does sound really familiar.
You know, I'm pretty sure I know who it is. In fact, if they're not going to request a song, I'm just going to play a song from his game. That's clearly Ash Williams of Evil Dead and Army of Darkness fame. So let's go ahead and give a listen to the title screen track from Evil Dead: Hail to the King. This came out in 2000 on the PS1 and is composed by Tommy Tallarico, Todd Dennis, Chris Rickwood, and Jack Wall.
Oh
That was the title screen off of Evil Dead Hail to the King, which came out in 2000 on the PlayStation 1, composed by Tommy Tallarico, Todd Dennis, Chris Rickwood, and Jack Wall.
All right, I'm going to go and bring us back to what we were talking about earlier today on this episode. South Park.
Oh, boy.
Do you remember the Domino's Cheesy Poofs?
Yes.
Domino's Cheesy Poofs. That's all I could think of when I hear this song.
To be honest, when I first heard this, I was really expecting to hear them sing like Klaatu, Barada, Necktie.
That's that's kind of a missed opportunity, huh?
Right?
Yeah, And considering the story behind this game, it would have been appropriate. The game itself actually takes place years after Army of Darkness. So this is set where he goes to sleep in the car and then wakes up back in the present and then goes back to working for S-Mart and everything else. But he goes back to working at S-Mart. He makes a new girlfriend named Jenny, but he's still suffering from nightmares from all the stuff that he's been through. So Jenny decides, like any rational person would, that the way to help Ash is to take him back to the cabin in the woods.
Of course.
Where all of this happened.
Of course.
The hand is still there. The hand plays the tape. Evil awakens. Jenny gets kidnapped. I'd say hilarity ensues, but this is actually more of a survival horror game than I would have expected post Army of Darkness. Like, a lot of the other Evil Dead games are actually kind of funny, and I mean, he's got some quotes in here. There's some sort of funny stuff, but it's more survival horror than I was expecting when I picked this one up. That's
interesting. I've seen this countless times on like the video game shelves, but I would have never given it a second glance. But I'll have to check it out because I do like the Evil Dead movies. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I was expecting this to be like playing through the first Evil Dead or something in the earlier stages. I was very surprised when it picked up after Army of Darkness. So if you want, I can loan it to you. It's pretty good. I haven't beaten it yet.
What about you, Jared? Have you played this one?
I have. I went through a real hard phase when I found out there were games that were like Resident Evil, because at first, there was games like Parasite Eve, and that was an RPG and it was distinct enough on its own. But there were games like Obscure and of course the Alone in the Dark for Dreamcast. What was it? The New Nightmare, I think it was.
Yeah, New Nightmare, yeah.
And then Hail to the King. So it was really interesting to me in the sense that I was so interested in 3D characters moving around on pre-rendered backgrounds that I liked it for that, but I remember not liking it too much more past that as far as like RE clones go, but I'll probably end up playing it again just because I really like Resident Evil clones.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. No, I dig the series itself, and I mean, I remember Justin, like, maybe, what was it, like, probably 2 years ago, we started watching the Evil Dead show.
Yep.
So this one was composed by Tommy Tallarico, Todd Dennis, Chris Rickwood, and Jack Wall. Tommy Tallarico and Jack Wall, very famous for Video Games Live, of course.
Yep.
Jack Wall was the orchestrator, I guess you could say, or the conductor of the symphony for Video Games Live, and then Tommy Tallarico was kind of like the showboater, kind of like, watch me play guitar, that sort of, I mean, I like his earlier stuff. Like, I mean, you really can't beat Global Gladiators.
I mean, yeah.
He also did RoboCop vs. Terminator, which had a great soundtrack, especially on the Genesis.
You know what? That did have a really good soundtrack.
That's the one that had, like, the Terminator with, like, the random samples in it, and
he can't stop himself from doing that.
Yeah, of course not. He did the Terminator for Sega CD, which is probably one of his best soundtracks. He composed Earthworm Jim 2's soundtrack. He never actually composed Earthworm Jim's soundtrack. He arranged the first Earthworm Jim.
Yes.
The first Earthworm Jim was done by somebody else. He's done so much for, especially with Virgin Entertainment.
I was going to say, there's a lot of Disney games that came out through Virgin, I think.
Lion King and
Aladdin, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if he did Lion King.
One of the versions of Aladdin was by Virgin. I think the Genesis version was by Virgin, and then the SNES version was someone else.
You are correct. That was Capcom that did the Super NES version. So yeah, he did the Genesis version, which in my opinion is the superior version of the game. Disney's Aladdin.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of partial to the Super Nintendo version.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I've never liked the Sega Genesis. I don't like how shallow its color depth always was. Like SNES graphics always look bigger and brighter. And this might come from console envy, because after Hurricane Andrew in Miami, I was forced to live with my cousins. Forced to, like, we had to because we didn't have a house, but it was actually really fun because I had a Sega Genesis, me and my brother had a Genesis, and our cousins had a Super Nintendo, and that was always the one we coveted. You know, when we rented a game, we would be like, yeah, this is kind of fun, but I can't wait till they're finished so we can play like Super Castlevania or something, you know?
Right, yeah. Definitely. Tommy Tallarico also did the Maximo games, not for nothing.
Okay.
So, you know, he's done some pretty good stuff here and there. I think some of his newer stuff is a little more cinematic and less focused on melody and harmonies and stuff. But Jack Wall, pretty infamous for Myst.
Yes.
Like Myst 3.
Some of my favorite games, Myst 3 and 4, he did the music for.
Yep. Mark of Cree, he did the intro and ending music. Mass Effect, pretty much like all the games, he was the lead composer on them, as well as Lost Planet 3, and he did a bunch of music for Call of Duty, like the Call of Duty series. So. Chris Rickwood is credited for a bunch of different stuff. He's also credited under Maximo Ghost to Glory. Also did some other games like American Civil War, The Apprentice Los Angeles, What's Cooking Jamie Oliver, Ghostbusters the video game, Clueless, Orcs Must Die in 2011. His last game was Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. Todd Dennis, the last composer, mostly worked with like Virgin and Interplay.
Did Maximo.
Also did Maximo Goes to Glory. Wolfenstein 3D, Skeleton Warriors, which I believe Tommy Tallarico also did work on as well as Skeleton Warriors. Duckman, Graphic Adventures of a Private Dick in 97. His last game was Advent Rising in 2005. So let's go even further back, deeper dive. This is my final track, and this is Sweet Home. This is on the NES, or Famicom actually, because it was exclusive to the Famicom in 1989. This is the battle theme, and this is by Junko Tamiya. Welcome back. That is the only NES chiptune-based song that we are playing on this episode. Sweet Home, that was on the Famicom in 1989. That was battle theme, and it was by Junko Tamiya. Very classic Capcom sound.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a Capcom game.
More so because it's got that like classic Capcom sound. There's like a huge difference between Capcom sounds. Like you had anything prior to like Mega Man 3 basically sounded like I don't know, not bad, just not, I don't know, I feel like it was missing something, like a vibrancy, or maybe like a greater focus on harmony and melody. And here you have a track that's pretty much like something that you would hear in like a Castlevania game.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that crazy, very frantic melody that's kind of going
definitely
along, you know, based on piano most likely. So Sweet Home is I guess you could say the first survival horror game, technically speaking, because it was that and Alone in the Dark were the big inspirations, which Jared could probably correct me if I'm wrong on that. But
well, no, it definitely was the inspiration. And while I won't say that's not a survival horror game, because I've been too negative this entire episode, I will say it's definitely close enough. If you were going to take a Nintendo game, you know, from the NES era, and say this is close to a modern genre, you'd probably be the closest with survival horror.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much the plot of Resident Evil, where you are playing as 5 different characters that basically get locked in this mansion. And it's kind of a ghost story. It's very much inspired by stuff like Suspiria and some of the, like, if you've heard of the band Goblin,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Like Goblin, like all those like 70s horror films, like the more psychological, like really creepy, crazy, grotesque ghost stories and stuff like that. Like that's what this is based on. This takes definitely like the Italian cinema aspect of it. Like it's not so much like the Hammer horror films or anything like that, or the goofy like Universal type of monsters. Yeah. It's not like that at all. It's more like it's like a mixture of the Japanese aesthetics, because there's actually it's based on I believe a movie.
Yes.
Sweet Home is based on the movie of the same name. So but basically the plot was expanded, kind of like they adapted the plot from the movie, but it takes place in 1959, and there's this artist that hides these frescoes in this mansion, and then he just poof, gone, disappears. And then in present day, there's this team of filmmakers that go to get the paintings, because they heard about the paintings. They go to get them, and they end up getting trapped by a ghost who is threatening to kill everybody. So that's basically the plot of the movie. So Junko Tamiya, phenomenal composer. Hasn't done as much as you'd think, despite being a Capcom composer. She started with Gunsmoke in 1988. I'm not sure if that's the arcade version or the NES version. Probably the NES version, because she actually converted a lot of those versions over to the NES from the arcade games. 1989 was a pretty busy year for her. Strider and Final Fight. She did music on both of those. She was uncredited for Strider. I believe that is the NES version, maybe?
Probably.
Possibly? I don't know. Possibly the NES version. It definitely sounds, Strider on the NES sounds like Junko Tamiya. Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight. Little Nemo, The Dream Master in 1990. Again, Final Fight 1990. I believe she did the Super NES version of that game. And then Codename Viper and Bionic Commando, again uncredited on both of those. And then I Want to Be the Guy, the movie, the game, just the original music that was used in that game from previous titles. Finally, the last game that she unofficially worked on was Final Fight Double Impact, and that's just because she worked on Final Fight.
Right.
All right. So we pretty much ran out of tracks, and we didn't actually have a Patreon track for this episode. So because we split everything up with 3 tracks each, Justin and I decided to pick the last track since Jared picked the intro. So we're going to close with our final track, which is Dino Crisis on the PlayStation 1. It also came out on the Dreamcast and the PC in 1999. This was Burn Away, that's the name of the track. It's by Makoto Tomozawa and Akari Kaida, Sayaka Fujita, and Shun Nishigaki.
Welcome back. That was the final track of the night. That track was Burn Away off of Dino Crisis, which came out on the PS1, Dreamcast, PC.
1999, the Dreamcast and the PC versions, I believe, came out in 2000.
There you go. And it was composed by Makoto Tomozawa, Akari Kaida, Sayaka Fujita, and Shun Nishigaki.
Yes. Yep. Did you play this one?
Dino Crisis?
Yeah.
I think I did. I don't think I played much of it, but I do remember dinos being in crisis.
I think
you got the full experience.
Crisis, not...
No, the dinos were in crisis too. They had too many people to eat.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
That was the issue.
Yeah. And I mean, Jared, you said that you kind of were on a shopping spree to go and play as many Resident Evil clones as you could. You couldn't look farther from exactly that.
Yeah. No, I not only did play Dino Crisis, but I loved it. And there was always, I had a friend at the time and we were both really into Resident Evil, so he was with me on my quest to conquer all the RE clones. And so we picked up Dino Crisis, and there's still to this day a joke between him and I about how you were given so little ammo in that game, so much less than we were even used to with Resident Evil 1. Because even in those games, if you were smart about it, you could keep like a good 30 rounds in your inventory at some point. And we would always joke around at how Dino Crisis was so stingy with its bullets, he would fire one, go get it, and put it back in the gun to get this. Yeah, I really liked Dino Crisis. It blew me away at the time, because here I was playing a RE clone, moving around with tank controls, but in a fully 3D environment. Like, it was blowing me away at the time.
Yeah, no, visually speaking, Dino Crisis was really impressive for a survival horror game. You play as this girl named Regina, and she's like a member of this like special forces group, and essentially, I'm trying to remember what happens, but like this group goes to investigate like an island, and somehow they get locked in with some dinosaurs, and that's pretty much all I remember.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So it's kind of like Jurassic Park meets Resident Evil.
Yeah. Resident Park.
Park.
Yeah, that's literally how it was sold to us in like game magazine reviews and stuff. Like, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting a review that said Jurassic Park meets Resident Evil.
Yeah, I remember this game because I bought it initially on the PlayStation, and then when the Dreamcast came out, I bought the Dreamcast specifically for Castlevania Resurrection, which, we all know how that went, unfortunately. Never came out. Basically canned because of the PS2. But I bought the Dreamcast for that game, but I ended up, like, I guess you could say, upgrading all my like PlayStation games that were coming out again on the Dreamcast. So I would get like Resident Evil 2 on the Dreamcast, and Dino Crisis on the Dreamcast. And I started doing that when I was in high school, just because that was like the cool thing to do, like constantly upgrade to the best version of the game, which I still kind of do. But I just remember playing it on the Dreamcast and being blown away at how much better the graphics looked, visually speaking. Like, it was a little crisper, a little cleaner.
Yeah. I mean, it was technically double as crisp and clean, because you took the PS1's 240p output, and Dino Crisis on Dreamcast is not 480p, but still, 480 lines interlaced on a CRT, you can't tell the difference. It just looks like double the resolution, extra sharp, and this is one of the games that came out on the Dreamcast that handled the PS1's affine texture warping really well. Where some games like I think it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater, the first one, kind of did poorly with the texture warping. It made it really obvious and stuff, because on the PS1 on 240p it wasn't as obvious because there were so many pixels. But the Dreamcast used textures that were very smooth, so you could tell when there was an alteration left or right, and then it started warping. And I think this game handled it pretty well.
Yeah. But I never beat this one, but I do really like this track. It's interesting because it's a very gripping song, throughout the beginning, very frantic, very crazy, and then it kind of ends on like a more somber kind of note.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
No, I liked it a lot. This kind of reminded me that I need to go back and play Dino Crisis, because while I was listening to it, I was getting heavy Resident Evil Code Veronica vibes, like the boss music for Code Veronica. That makes really sense. Had that feeling for me.
And an interesting note, you had mentioned about bullets being so scarce in this game, and I do agree. And I'm the sort of person when I play a survival horror world, like, I'll use up all my bullets and then be like, oh crap, So like I have to like reteach myself how to play a survival horror game when I actually sit down and play one. But speaking to Dino Crisis and Resident Evil Code Veronica, when I picked it up on the Dreamcast, the knife mechanics were different in that game than the other Resident Evil games. Like, to me, you could get away with cheesing your way to victory with the knife.
Oh yeah, you definitely can.
Wildly.
So that is our show on survival horror. We of course want to thank Jared for stopping by and joining us as our very first non-composer guest. Always a pleasure having him. We'll have to bring him back for something that's not survival horror. Yeah,
just like, to get him out of that wheelhouse.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll do like cutesy platformers.
There you go. There we go.
Yeah, cute 'em ups. Oh, there you go. I love cute 'em ups. Jared's like, please no. So, Jared, where can we find you on the web?
If you're looking for me, you could find me on YouTube at Avalanche Reviews. I usually review all kinds of stuff, from role-playing games to obscure fighting games, first-person shooters, anything that I kind of find interesting, which tends to be not extremely popular. I have a really weird type of taste for video games. So it kind of looks like I'm being contrarian when I'm reviewing games, but I just have a weird set of tastes. So if you're looking for me there, I have been doing the Resident Evil retrospective lately, and I think that's what people probably know me for. So that's still got a couple episodes to go. As a matter of fact, I haven't told anybody outside of my patron supporters yet, but I am working on a video on Resident Evil Remake. So this kind of coincided perfectly, since when I first started the retrospective, I just kind of glossed over it. I was like, yeah, it's the best game ever, and then that was it. So we're going to dive in deep with this one.
Goodness, I'm looking forward to that, especially since I actually reviewed that one myself on my channel too.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you're not going to get Julia Voth. I don't know.
Well, listen, I can only do so much.
So let's go with favorite track of the episode. Jared, what was your favorite track of this episode?
I gotta say, this was a surprise for me because I was aware of and really into all the games we were talking about so far, except for Alone in the Dark, which none of us have played, and really and truly I had no interest of going into until I heard that song, Run for Your Life. It sounds like I would really enjoy playing the game if the music is even that good, a quarter of the game.
Yeah, very cool. Justin?
Nice. So the Alone in the Dark track is actually a very close second for me. I really grew attached to that track the more I sort of listened to it. The track that we came in on, the intro track, You're Not Here from Silent Hill 3, it felt good. Like it was a good memory. I really enjoyed the entirety of that track.
Cool. I really love that Parasite Eve track, but I'm gonna go with Dead Space. It's just so abstract and nightmarish. It's just and it's got that weird like pseudo, like if Meshuggah was like classical music.
Yeah.
Like avant-garde classical Meshuggah. So I think that's gonna be my pick. But that's definitely Parasite Eve would be a close second, just because that song just really takes me back to playing that game, and I can't deny the nostalgia for it. So
yeah, no, that's fair.
Good stuff. So we actually have a couple announcements, one of which is Extra Life. So Justin, tell me a little bit about your Extra Life event that you've got going on.
As the event is still coming up on November 3rd, some friends and I are going to be getting together to participate in an event called Extra Life, which is where gamers get together and they play video games for 24 hours, and they get people to make donations to charitable causes. Yeah. So the cause that our team is playing for this year is Kids with Cancer. So the funds go to local cancer hospitals here in Connecticut as well. I believe one of our members has chosen a Massachusetts hospital because she is from Massachusetts. So we are going to be doing a number of things. An actual schedule will come out eventually. Yep. In fact, if it's out when we release the episode, we'll link that if folks are interested. We do have on that Saturday at 2 p.m. We're planning on running an Overwatch tournament, PlayStation 4 players. So we'll be streaming that and commentating on it. It should be a good time overall. But cool. I mean, come see who doesn't make it full 24 hours.
So we want to thank our patrons for sponsoring the show: Alex the Messenger, Kim Werme, Chris Murray, Chris Meyers, and Scott McElhone. Thank you so much for sponsoring it. You can check us out on patreon.com/XVGM Radio. If you want to support the show, you can also check us out at xvgmradio.com, and also check out our episodes on iTunes, where you can subscribe and leave a review and leave a rating as well. Just let us know how we're doing and what you think of the show.
You can also find us on Facebook. We are facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio. Let us know in the post for this show what you thought. What was your favorite track? What tracks maybe weren't your favorite? We like to hear all of it. Anything you tell us can potentially help us make the show better.
Yes.
So you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. We are at XVGM Radio.
Yes.
I also wanted to thank Candace Jacoby for voicing Jill Valentine in the Resident Evil commercial this episode. She does an awesome YouTube channel called Candy's Game Shrine, so please go check that out. You can check out the link in the README down below.
So we're going to leave you with an announcement for the upcoming episode that we've prepared. So
give a listen.
Yeah. And again, we want to thank Jared for coming on the show. Always great having you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
And this is Mike
and Justin
from XVGM Radio signing out.
XVGM Radio is proud to present
Spooky Fest 2018!
Ever wanted to listen to a music festival you can't actually attend?
Ever thought, hey, this beer is cold, the jams are great, but I just hate going outside?
Boy, have we got a solution for you!
Spooky Fest 2018!
With performances by some of your favorite video game music composers.
From some of the spookiest games you may or may not have heard from.
So tune in October 31st, 2018 for
Spooky Fest 2018!